I've been getting the question again, and it's been a while, so it's time for another episode of Behold My Stuff. Now, for those of you who don't know me, this is not the way I normally introduce myself to people, but I am an online archer, content creator, specializing in medieval weaponry and fantasy combat. The result of which, I've gathered one or two bits of kit which are a little bit unusual. And while some people ask this question with something specific in mind, I do very frequently just get asked, where do you get all of your gear? Now, the first thing to bear in mind before I get too much further into this is that this is going to take a while. There's a lot of different bits of kit here, and while a lot of people ask me, where do you get all your gear, presumably expecting some kind of John Wick sommelier figure who just goes, I believe Sir's looking for something to pair with Sir's bow. Might I recommend the Bardiche? The reality is that I got the vast majority of this stuff from a range of different places at a range of different times. Some items are not actually available for general sale and can only be ordered as commissions. Some of them are available for general sale and were reasonably cheap. Some of them are terrible, some of them are good, some of it's from eBay. So let's address it. But before we go too much further with that, I want to talk about my sponsors for this video, World Anvil. Longer time viewers of my long videos will know that World Anvil have sponsored a bunch of my videos. And one of the reasons why I continue to work with them is because they're really cool. Not just as video sponsors, but also as a tool. One of my favorite things when I'm reading a story, playing a game, or watching a film is when the fantasy world, the world where everything is made up, kind of comes together and feels real. But when I'm DMing or writing or even playing, I find that incredibly hard to achieve. I've got a strong tendency to get carried away with a joke or a bit or a comment and then lose track of the way that that fits into the actual story. But that's one of the things that World Anvil is really good for. It lets you manage your world, your characters, and your game by plotting the details in ways that are easily connected. With tools like map editors, character creators, family trees, storyboards, and ways to link them from one to the other so that you don't end up with a GM screen that looks like a murder board. And if you do happen to make something silly up on the spot, it's easy to go back and add that in later. And as always, if you use the code BLUMINECK when you sign up, then you can get 51% off any annual membership, allowing you to keep going for longer and to write even more stories. And you can find the link down below. Now, the point of this video is to satisfy your curiosity. I do not recommend you go out and try and gather all of these things. The vast majority of them have very little practical purpose, and the only reason I have them is because it's my job. If you're actually looking to collect things for some kind of apocalypse scenario, the best thing you can realistically do is start gathering food and shelter and the actual things you need to survive. Stuff like this is not going to help. But if you're into fencing or something like that, you will probably have specific requirements of the type of thing you're looking for, and these might not be the job either. But let's start, because it's my specialty, with bows. Now, my bows are actually relatively easy to talk about because I get the majority of them from the same place. And that place is Alibow. I don't currently have any sponsorships with Alibow, although I'm trying to work with them on setting something up because I keep coming back to them for various reasons. This is the bow that I use in pretty much all of the workshops that I teach and that I'm very comfortable handing out to beginners. It's very lightweight, it's got a draw weight of 10 pounds. It's in theory designed for children, but that means that I can give it to anybody and not have to worry about them potentially getting injured or struggling with the draw weight, and we can just concentrate on what we're doing. Especially when we're shooting indoors, and because we sometimes shoot at each other, we can shoot with one of these soft-tipped arrows, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, but they generally allow me to do a lot more than I would with a heavier bow. They're also reasonably cheap, so if you're looking for something for starting out in a small space, and you're not looking or needing to do any sort of longer range target archery, this Alibow Junior is fantastic. But I also have a bunch of other bows from them. I've got this one, which is the heaviest bow that I currently feature in my videos. This one has a draw weight of 110 pounds at 28 inches, so 11 times what the other one's got, but I also frequently draw it back to 30 inches where it's getting about 120 pounds. We use that with these incredibly long and heavy arrows that are stiff enough and heavy enough to take the force of this bow, and yeah, this you will have seen before because it's been in loads of my videos, and it draws something like this. It makes a hole in stuff and it's very fun to use. The arrows for this are also from Alibow because I might as well order a few things at once. Both of those bows are made of fiberglass and wrapped in leather, and that makes them pretty durable. I can chuck them around, I can abuse them a little bit, and I'm not too worried about them exploding. This is another Alibow that's a little bit fancier. It's called the Keshig, and it is a laminate bow made of laminated layers of wood and synthetic materials to kind of recreate, but in a more modern sense, the kind of materials that we use for traditional composite bows. And it's lovely. To be honest, this one has a draw weight of 45 pounds, so I can use it with most of my arrows, and it's light, it's simple, it's fast, it's easy to use. If you are looking to get a bow that is of a more traditional style, especially an Eastern style of horse bow, and you want to start shooting traditional off either side without an arrow shelf, I do frequently recommend Alibow because they're a pretty low price point for the quality of bow that you get. Now, the caveat to that for most people that will be watching this video is that they are based in China, which means that you are looking at reasonably long shipping times, and it can take them a little while to get back to you with stuff. So don't order one of these if you're expecting it in the short term, but if you're willing to wait 6 months or so, it's a pretty good price and it's a pretty good bow. So I tend to recommend these with the caveat that it takes a while and their communication isn't always fantastic. I've never yet had a problem with a bow not turning up. I've never yet had a problem with a bow arriving and being terrible, so that's why I continue to recommend them. But I also have a bunch of other bows that I tend to use when I need something a bit more specialized. The bows that I use the majority of the time in my videos are a little bit fancier and a little bit more specialized than the ones that I get from Alibow. This is one that I've been asked about loads of times. It's got a very nice and distinctive curved shape to it, very, very heavily recurved limbs. This one is from a company called Border Archery, who are based in Scotland. And this is the bow that I've owned the longest out of any of these. It was my first bow that I ever did a TikTok video with. And it's the first bow that I ever went viral with. It's lovely. It's got a lot of sentimental value to me. It's been through the mill. It's got scratches all over it. It's held together, well, not held together, but modified a lot with tape in various places to achieve certain different tricks over the years and just make it a bit more comfortable to hold and shoot. It has a draw weight of 60 pounds. It was the first bow that I ever had that doesn't have a shelf cut out of it for more modern styles of archery. And that allows me, even though it's a carbon fiber bow that's very, very fast, it allows me to do traditional styles of archery with it, and that was kind of the basis of me picking up a lot of my current tricks. The main reason I don't use it anymore is because I've been pushing towards heavier bows for most of my videos, and Border just flat out refused to make one of these above 60 pounds. And I understand the reasoning for this. I'm not having a go at them for this. They specialize mostly in target bows for Olympic style target shooting. This is a little bit of a side venture for them at the best of times to make something that's more of a horse bow. And they're just not looking at going above the kind of weight ranges that are used in those activities because there's just not that much market in it for them. They'd have to do a lot of R&D to get a carbon fiber bow of this shape to take those heavier draw weights. And while I would absolutely love to see what that could do, it's just not on the cards at the moment. And that is why I've switched to using something a little bit heavier so I can get my training in while I shoot. This has become my go-to bow for most things since I got it. There was a while where I wasn't using it because I was having difficulty with the strings, but I've managed to get that set up a little bit better. And this is a Turkish style of bow called an aga. Turkish bows were frequently very, very short. So this is actually longer than most in that style, but it means that it's not getting in the way if I'm doing some tricks, if I'm spinning it around, if I'm jumping, if I'm flipping, if I'm on a pole. It's a lot easier to manage a bow of this length, but it has a draw weight of 85 pounds at 28 inches. So it's very, very fast, very, very strong. And that is a very good draw weight, in my opinion, for this kind of thing, because when you look historically at the kind of agile archery that was done, whether it was from horseback or while running around on foot, it rarely went much above that in many cases. So it allows me to do a bit of speed shooting, it allows me to do some trick shooting, and then I've got heavier ones for when I want to do some heavier shooting. This is by Misko Rovkanen of MR Bows. He does a whole bunch of different lovely bows. Again, one of the reasons that I'm not too bothered about the wait times from Alibow is that anyone that you want a fancy traditional bow from is going to have a wait time of several months, and Misko's no different. If you order from him, it's going to take 6 to 9 months to get your bow. And then there's this thing. This is by Joe Gibbs, and if you are familiar with People who make videos about this kind of thing on the internet, you may well be familiar with Joe. He is one of the sort of quintessential examples of a heavy bow archer in the UK at the moment. He has been known to shoot bows of over 200 pounds, but he also makes bows, which is fair, because if you're shooting bows that heavy, it's hard to get them from anyone else. This is a recurved bow. It's laminated, so it's got some kind of modern and anachronistic features to it, but it has a draw weight of 126 pounds at 28 inches. You won't have seen this one very often in my videos, if at all, because it's only on the very best of days that I'm able to get this thing all the way back. I'm still working on it. I'm still training with it. I'm working with my personal trainer, Neat, who also happens to be my wife, which is handy, to try and get strong enough to use this thing consistently. But I'm doing so many other things that my body weight tends to stay low, and it's taking me a while. So today is very humid, it's very hot. I doubt I'll get it all the way back, but you will be able to see the process. And it sort of shows the difference, because the 110 at 28 inches, or 120-ish at 30 inches, I can draw that comfortably. I can shoot multiple arrows from it. I can even kind of speed shoot with it. And then you switch to this thing, which is in theory 16 pounds heavier, and it looks a little bit more like this. There are days when I manage to get that all the way back, thanks to a fairly focused training plan. But on an average day, when I've not worked up to it specially, it's not happening. But maybe one day this will become the heavy bow that you see in my videos instead of the blue one. Honourable mentions in the bow category go to this thing. This is an ancient Hoyt compound bow. This is the oldest bow that I own, although I've only owned it for a short period of time, because it's a second hand. It's technically a right-handed bow, which has allowed me to modify it for some faster shooting, but I'm not going to do that very often because compound bows aren't really designed to take that kind of thing. But yeah, this bow is, I don't even specifically know, but somewhere in the realm of decades old. And then the last bow that I'm going to talk about is this thing. This is a crossbow, but it's not just any crossbow, it's a repeating crossbow. I was sent this for a sponsored video ages and ages back. The sponsored video never actually materialized. They never sponsored the ad, so I just have it. And as some of you know, I'm not a massive fan of crossbows at the best of times. This particular crossbow scares me, if I'm honest. It's designed to be able to shoot reasonably quickly, and it does. It has a draw weight of 150 pounds, which is a relatively short draw length, so it's not competing per se with some of my heavier bows, because it doesn't actually generate as much power as them. But my goodness, it generates enough power to cause some problems. Although that's just me, because I don't specialize in crossbows. Bows are my thing, and so I'm not actually going to be using this anywhere near as often as I use my actual favorites. Next up, we're going to have a look at throwers. This is a relatively small category for me. I don't have that many of them, but these are things that are designed to be thrown. I'll start off with these two because these are both from the same person. These are from Todd, who you might know as Todd Cutler or Todd of Todd's Workshop. He is a phenomenal smith. He makes all kinds of different bits and bobs, and both of these two are on loan from him. Last time I was round, he lent me them for use in videos. I've slightly abused them since then, but it will all buff out. And they are phenomenal. This is a Francisca, and you can get Franciscas from other places. The distinctive shape of these means that they're specialized axes for throwing. And when you launch them, they can hit edge on from like this angle all the way around to about here, but they can also hit point on like that. So you get a quite nice range within which you can stick them into a target, but not anywhere near as nice as this. This is a hurlbat, and unless you hit at this kind of angle here, it's pretty much most of the time going to find some way to hit the target with a point or a blade. And these are very, very fun to throw around. Somewhat worrying to carry in a pocket. So if you had like 6 of these for throwing, I've no idea how you'd actually store those on your person if you were running into combat, but as a thing to mess with, very, very good fun. But the most specialized throwers that I have, and the ones that I can most easily tell you where to get them from, are these things. These are called Raven throwers. They're a fairly modern design, but as you can see, there's something in common with both the shape of the axe blade of the Francisca, and also the feature of the Hurlbat, where it's got quite a broad range in which you can throw it. It's halfway between a throwing knife, and you can use throwing knife techniques with it, but it also has several of the features of a thrown axe, and with an edge on either side, you can hit anywhere between... And while it doesn't have a spike on the back, with an edge on either side, you can hit anywhere within the range of about here, all the way through this part to about there. So you've got slightly more than 180 degrees of rotation within which you can hit something with some sharp edges. And these I got from blades.co.uk. I do have an existing relationship with these guys. They often send me stuff, and you'll notice as I go through melee gear, there's a few different bits and bobs that I've been sent from them. But hey, I'm happy to recommend them. I've chucked these around a fair bunch. They're pretty decent. And again, not too expensive. And just so that you can see I'm not making all of this up, you've got your Francisca, your Hurlbat, and your Raven Thrower, which can also, if you're so inclined, be thrown more like a knife so that it sticks point in without any rotation. Next up, we're going to have a look at one-handers. There's a little bit of variation in these in terms of their quality and what they're for, but you get a bit of an idea as we look through. Several of these are axes, but I'm going to start with this one. This is a cold steel hand axe. It's a little over heavy for what it is because of the amount of metal that's contained within the head of the thing, but it's a hand axe, so it's designed to be that much lighter than an axe that's not used in combat, and that allows it to be reasonably movable, although for a lot of like single-handed axe and knife type combat techniques, you probably want something with a slightly shorter handle that's a little bit more manageable, and with a slightly smaller, more tomahawk-shaped head. One of my main issues with cold steel as a rule is that while they make things that I'm very happy to just whack things with and cause problems for and just generally risk breaking, they're not the most elegant of things, and they are also frequently not designed in a particularly historical way. So, for instance, this is held on with an Allen key focused grub screw, and that's what secures it in place on here. And again, it's just a little chunky for what it needs to be. This is also cold steel. It's a Warhammer, so it's got a hammer head on the front, it's got a pick on the back. It's a historical type of thing, but again, if you look closer at the details on the thing, it's held in place with a grub screw, and the longets here are held in place, and this is one of my grievances with them. Anytime there's an additional thing to attach, these are held in place with the rattliest, tiniest, weakest screws I've ever seen in my life. It takes a couple of blows before some of them start coming loose. A couple of them have just gotten completely lost. And while the thing kind of still holds together, again, it's cheap and it's cheerful. It's not high quality stuff that you're going to expect to last a long time. It's not a display piece. These are for breaking up bits of wood in your back garden. They're not really for anything more finessed. The flip side to that, though, is this one. This is also cold steel. This is a cold steel Special Forces shovel, and this is, because it's made with those tool-like tendencies, is a reasonably legitimate survival tool in its own right. You can dig with this, you can chop with this, you can use it to split wood, there we go, in a pinch. This is made with some proper size screws that actually hold the thing together securely. I've never had any of these come loose, so on the whole I can't really complain about this one. All of these come from Cold Steel UK. They were all sent out to me to have a mess with and to test and to damage, and some of them I've successfully damaged, some of them less so. Moving on to the slightly nicer things, I've got this and this. Both of these are from Todd, of Todd's workshop, and you can buy those from his website. This one was a birthday present. It's a little bit fancier because it's got a little dragon, and it's much like the other hammer, but it is a little bit nicer. And it comes with a clip on it, so that it can slot easily enough into a belt, and then you can just draw it when you need it. This is a falchion. It's a single-handed sword with a nice clip point on it. I really love the shape of these things. They're just like giant Bowie knives, but they are functional swords. It's got a sword guard. This one is sharp, so it will, like everything else, chop into stuff. It has seen a little bit of abuse, and I need to sort out some of the nicks on it and sharpen it up a little bit more. One of the things with Todd's things is that they are all made not just to do the job, but also to look very nice. So these could very well be display pieces. This would not look out of place hanging on a wall, but also you can chop stuff with it. And I like that. It does tend to mean that I'm a lot more cautious with them, and it takes me a very long time to start swinging these in a way that could risk damage. But that's not a bad thing. This is a bit less fancy. This is an Epsilon axe that was made for me by Ruby Ferguson, who is a blacksmith and a friend. And she made this as a rough and ready prop example of an Epsilon axe when I needed something for testing the Odyssey myth, the shooting through 12 axes, because the Epsilon axes that you could find in that period had holes in their design that give you something to shoot through. So that is something that I've used for some testing, and as you can see, it has taken a little bit of abuse in the handle as I was figuring out my aim for that shot. This isn't really sharp, it's not for anything other than testing that, but it's nice to have. Especially because there's another film coming out with that shot in it. And then these are hook swords. These are from Playwell Martial Arts. They are not sharp in any way, except if you were to jab someone with them, it would still hurt. They are plastic, and they allow you to mess about with the features of a hook sword without worrying about stabbing yourself or other people with the sharp bits. They're good fun to play with, and they're a martial arts prop. And then last, but absolutely not least, we've got the two-handers. These are all the bits of kit which take two hands to use. Most of them are pole arms because I'm an absolute sucker for a pole arm. And yeah, let's just get to it. There's a couple that you'll recognize from brands that you've heard of before. So this is a Cold Steel European winged spear. It's a spear. It's good to have a spear for a lot of the stuff that I talk about because they are one of the most popular and commonly used weapons throughout history. This, again, feels sometimes a little bit heavy in the hand, but more like the Special Forces shovel. It at least feels pretty durable. I have broken one of these in the past, but in the defense of the spear, I had shoved it in the ground. I was attempting to pole dance on it. They generally hold up pretty well. The screws in them are not quite as secure as the ones that hold together the Special Forces shovel, but they're enough that I've never really had an issue with them shaking loose or being a problem. This, on the other hand, is another Cold Steel bit of kit. This is the Cold Steel poleaxe, and this I've had more problems with. It, in theory, also has langets like the hammer did, and they have the same tiny screws to hold it in place. And the haft that they sent, the bit of wood that they're designed to go with it, doesn't have space for those. It also isn't a secure fit on the socket of the axe itself, so I had to wrap this in tape to create slightly more friction. You screw it in and bolt it through as well, but it would just be rattling constantly if it wasn't for that. That said, the supplier of these, swords.co.uk, they have been very good about it, and they have contacted a woodworker to commission a new haft. No cost to me. So I can't complain about them, but in terms of Cold Steel shipping these out, these have come out with the wrong haft that isn't actually to the spec that's required for these. It's the wrong shape, and it's not the right length for everything that needs attaching. So that's a slight issue. Also, again, we know this about Cold Steel by now. They're not the most historical things. This is basically a bit of pipe that's been welded on. It doesn't have the spike on the top that a lot of poleaxes have. It does, however, have a dirty grey axe head and a big hammer on it, and I can use it for whacking stuff, and I'm not too worried again about it breaking because it was much less expensive than any other poleaxe I'm likely to get that is of whacking things grade steel. So it's got that going for it. This is a bow staff. It's from Playwell Martial Arts, much like the hook swords. It's like the wood. It's good. It's a martial arts staff. It's designed to hit things. It works absolutely fine. There's very little to say about this. Again, another useful bit of kit to have because there's a lot of things you can talk about or demonstrate using one of these, even if, in theory, what you're demonstrating is a technique for a different type of weapon. Next up, there's this. This is a Dane axe. It's of the type of axe that were used by the Viking Huskarls or the Saxon Huskarls And the Stamford Bridge Viking was an example of somebody that used one of these. They would stand on the bridge, swing the thing around, and generally cause problems for anyone that wanted to get into range of it. It was very much a space clearance thing. They were used by elite warriors and bodyguards, but they're not stupidly heavy either. For a two-handed great axe, if you will. You can hold it, you can choke it way back, you still have some control over the thing. It's got a point on it, much like the Francisca, that you could use if you want to thrust towards somebody. It doesn't look like it, but if you imagine that as a sharp bit of metal coming towards you, that is still going to do something. It can hook as well with the back end of it. So they're quite versatile for what they are. If you're strong enough, you can use it like a spear. You could use it like a billhook or a halberd. You can use it like a montante just to swing and clear space. It's a lovely bit of kit. This particular one is blunt, which means it can be used for reenactment type things. It is from, I don't even know the name of the vendor. I got it from a stall at England's Medieval Festival, and it is not mine. This belongs to my wife, Neat, and that is why you'll never see me whacking anything particularly hard with this, because I'll be in a lot of trouble with somebody that knows how to swing an axe very well if I damage it. This axe, though, is mine. This is a Bardiche, and one of the weird things about this job is that every now and then I get a message from somebody that I know with a sentence, something like, "Hey, do you want a Bardiche?" This is from a blacksmith that I've worked with in the past, Ben from Historia Normannis in Hereford. You may recognise him from the times I did collaborations with Historia Normannis, and he contacted me saying that he'd had someone commission this thing, and then the commission fell through, and he wanted to know if I wanted it. So I'm not going to say no to that. So I have it. It is hefty for what it is. It's a heavy bit of kit because it was designed for Buhurt, and if you are not familiar with Buhurt, it's a thing where people put on giant hefty tin cans and then whack away at each other with different bits of kit. It was originally going to be blunt. It has an edge on it, but it's mild steel, so it doesn't retain the edge very well because that's not what it was made for. It's a lovely bit of kit, but because it was designed to be durable for very hefty whacking, and not need the hafts replacing or anything like that, it hasn't quite got the maneuverability of some examples of its kin that you might find in historical collections in museums, for instance. But it's maneuverable enough. You can do some things with it. It's a very nice bit of kit to own, and if you are looking for a bit of kit, I highly recommend going to Ben. Now, this is one of the things that I get asked about probably the most. This is a two-handed sword, as you can see. It is of the type that is sometimes called a Zweihander, although you could easily use it in the same way as a montante, because all of these things are just different cultures' words for big sword. I frequently just refer to it as a great sword because that is my culture's word for big sword. This particular example is sharp. It's a little over it's 6.5 feet tall. It is a little bit of a monster to wield, but as you can see from the profile of the blade, it's quite light for its size, and that allows you to be reasonably quick with it if you wish to be. I actually have two of these now, although they are absolutely not for dual wielding, because I have a blunt version as well for times when you just cannot have a sharp sword reasonably. And this is from a company called Regnier Armory. Again, like pretty much everyone else that I've mentioned here, if you order from them, you can expect a fairly long wait time. So don't order one of these if you're expecting one tomorrow. And then finally, we get to this. This is arguably my favorite one of these bits of kit because it is a relatively unique thing. This was a specific commission from Todd because there are a few examples of these in the armories in Leeds where you see a Morning Star a la the fantasy big spiky bull on a stick, but they are mounted on a much larger stick and they are a polearm type weapon. They were used by sort of watchmen and guards because this is scary. If you see one of these pointed at you, you want to not be in its way. And while they're not necessarily the most versatile or the most efficient tools for the job, there are a lot of other polearms that if you're fighting in armored combat or in a war would probably serve you better. This is a very intimidating bit of kit, and a large part of its function is that intimidation. But the main thing that I like about it is that it is heavy, and so if I train with this thing for a little while, I can train montante motions, I can train pole arm motions, and once I'm finished training with this, everything else feels really light. So it's pretty good for that. And given that I'm actually very rarely fighting anyone, and I'm certainly never fighting anyone with this, it's an excellent training tool and a really cool conversation piece. And that's it. You have beheld my stuff. You've seen what it is. You know where I got it from. And if you're looking for silly fantasy, archery and combat stuff, stick around. There'll be more of that in the next video.